I started with it was his second violin when he made. He was 22 years old. It was still very small. And I sold it now. Some Korean girl with small fingers is playing on it. And now I have a later one from 1692. Very beautiful sound. I know that a lot of people believe whatever because they don't understand and they don't know. But I rather would like to take the freedom to say, okay, I don't know, so I don't know.
For over half a century, André Rieu didn't just perform music, he gave it life. From opulent concert halls to moonlit outdoor arenas, his violin told stories no words ever could. He transformed classical music from something reserved for the elite into a joyful, global celebration. Crowds didn't just attend his shows, they danced, cried, and held hands through every note. Known as the Waltz King, Rieu became more than a conductor. He became a companion in people's most personal moments.
André Rieu is now the king of romance. The Dutch master's latest album is called Falling in Love, and it features some of the most romantic songs of all time.
His orchestra wasn't just a team of musicians, it was a family spreading harmony across continents. But now, something has changed. A sudden silence has fallen where music once soared. Tours are on hold. Public appearances have stopped. And for the first time in decades, the world is wondering if the curtain has quietly closed on one of music's most beloved performers. Could this truly be the end of André Rieu's magical journey? Has time finally caught up with the maestro who never seemed to slow down? Are we witnessing a graceful goodbye, or is something deeper unfolding behind the scenes? What happened to the man who once filled stadiums with light and love? Can his orchestra survive without him at the helm? And most of all, what becomes of a legacy when the music stops, but the memories remain? The man behind the baton. Behind the perfectly tailored tuxedo and the ever-charming smile lies a man whose journey began long before the lights and the fame. Born in Maastricht, Netherlands in 1949, André Rieu was raised in a musical household. His father was a conductor. From a young age, he was surrounded by the sound of violins, pianos, and concertos. But what made Rieu different wasn't just his talent, it was his vision. He dreamed not only of playing music, but of transforming how people experience it. While his peers chased perfection in prestigious orchestras, Rieu set his sights on connection. He wanted to make classical music feel alive, joyful, and accessible to all. That's how the Johann Strauss Orchestra was born in 1987, an ensemble unlike any other. With waltzes, ball gowns, and spectacle, Rieu took the concert hall experience into sports arenas and open-air theaters. But the spotlight can be heavy. Those close to Rieu say he has always carried the weight of keeping everyone entertained, even at the cost of his own peace. André lives for the audience, said a longtime colleague. But there were times he looked completely drained backstage. As questions swirl about his future, fans are revisiting the roots of his empire. Was Rieu simply too passionate, too driven to ever slow down? Or have the years quietly chipped away at the man who turned music into magic? In this chapter of his life, the maestro's most haunting question might not be about music at all, but about legacy. At the height of his career, André Rieu was more than a classical conductor. He was a cultural force. Selling more than 40 million albums and DVDs worldwide.
One of the most loved and successful artists on the planet, and his extravagant concerts often outsell gigs like Coldplay, Elton John, and even Madonna.
His concerts weren't just performances, they were global events. He turned classical music into a spectacle that thrilled fans from Tokyo to Toronto, mixing elegance with theatrical grandeur. While most conductors remained confined to symphony halls, Rieu filled football stadiums. It wasn't unusual to see couples waltzing in the aisles, people crying from joy, and standing ovations before the intermission. But it wasn't just his showmanship that drew the crowds, it was his sincerity. He had an uncanny ability to speak to the soul. His signature piece, The Blue Danube, would often bring crowds to tears, and he treated each note like it carried someone's memory. Fans recall unforgettable performances, like the 2011 Freithof concert in his hometown Maastricht, when he played under the open skies and tens of thousands stood in awe. That concert alone symbolized everything Rieu stood for: community, beauty, and timeless joy. But even at the peak, cracks began to show. Insiders say the pressure to keep innovating and outperforming past tours began to weigh heavily. He once admitted, "The hardest part is making it look effortless every night." As fans remember those golden years, many wonder, did the weight of his success build a mountain too steep to keep climbing? Whispers in the wings. As the spotlight dims, a different kind of silence fills the air. Not the kind that follows applause, but the kind that comes before a goodbye. Insiders say André's team has become increasingly protective, limiting interviews and tightly controlling news. Fans who once flooded message boards with concert photos now share rumors and heartfelt farewells. One fan wrote, "He gave us magic for decades. If this is goodbye, let it be on his terms." But is that what's truly happening? In recent months, André Rieu has quietly retreated from his usual routine. Fewer public sightings, fewer rehearsals. The man who once personally greeted fans after every show now seems tucked away behind closed doors. Close associates suggest his health, while not publicly confirmed, may be more fragile than ever admitted. A family friend shared, "He still plays, but not for hours like before." There's a gentleness in how he handles his violin now, like he's saying goodbye to an old friend. There's also talk about succession. Could someone else lead the Johann Strauss Orchestra one day? Or will it all fade without him? For decades, Rieu has been the heart, soul, and spectacle of his empire. Without him, can it even survive? As the world waits for clarity, the silence feels louder than ever. And while no official announcement has been made, every quiet day only makes the question grow stronger. Is the maestro preparing for a final bow? Or simply catching his breath before an unexpected encore? They say a true performer never really retires, he just changes his stage. But when it comes to André Rieu, the silence between performances is beginning to feel like something more permanent. In the past, a gap in tour dates might have meant preparation. Now it feels like absence. And absence, for fans who've grown old alongside him, cuts deeper than ever. Reports from Europe suggest that several major venues, once guaranteed stops on his calendar, are now quietly booking other acts. Promoters remain tight-lipped. One insider admitted, "We've been told to wait." But wait for what? That's the question. Meanwhile, longtime orchestra members have taken on smaller side projects, something rarely seen during Rieu's peak years. There's an air of uncertainty, even among those who once called his tours a second home. André himself has made only brief online appearances, short clips thanking fans, smiling through the screen, saying everything and nothing at once. It's as if he's trying to comfort his audience without confronting the truth.
The support from my fans in the UK this year has been incredible. And I want to say a huge thank you to you for buying my albums and coming to my concerts.
A man of music, struggling to compose his own ending. Fans around the world continue to post tributes, playing his recordings at weddings, funerals, and moments of solitude. His music lives on, echoing in homes, hearts, and memories. But as the man behind the melodies fades from view, one question grows impossible to ignore. If this is indeed the beginning of goodbye, how do you honor a man who never stopped giving, until the silence claimed the final note? The weight of legacy. For André Rieu, the stage wasn't just a platform, it was a promise. A promise to bring beauty into a world often too busy to stop and listen. But now, as time casts longer shadows and the music softens, that promise has turned into a quiet burden. The question is no longer just what comes next, but what remains. Legacy is a heavy word. For some, it's found in awards and accolades. For Rieu, it's something far more fragile: moments. A father dancing with his daughter during the second waltz. A grieving widow smiling through tears as Ave Maria fills the air. These are the invisible achievements, the ones not framed in gold but etched into hearts. And yet, even a legacy so deeply loved faces challenges. Critics who once dismissed him as too commercial are now re-evaluating his impact, wondering if the classical world lost something real in its elitism. Meanwhile, younger generations, raised on noise and speed, may not grasp what he gave them. One orchestra member, speaking off record, said, "André wasn't just trying to entertain. He was trying to protect something old and sacred." And so, as the curtain slowly lowers, the world begins to measure not just a man's career, but his meaning. Did André Rieu change music? Yes. But more importantly, he changed people. And in the end, isn't that the only legacy that matters? There's a strange silence that falls after a lifetime of sound, a silence so unfamiliar, it feels like grief. For fans of André Rieu, that silence has begun to settle in, not because his music has disappeared, but because the man himself is growing quieter with each passing season. And for those who've lived their lives in tune with his rhythm, the pause is deafening. No official farewell has been spoken, no final concert announced. Yet every canceled date, every unreturned email from management, every month without a new video adds to the growing stillness. It's as though André is easing away, not in a dramatic goodbye, but in a gentle retreat, the kind you barely notice until it's already happened. Musicians close to him whisper of reflective moods. "He's not sad," said one friend, "just thoughtful. It's like he's standing at the edge of a memory." They say he spends more time in his garden now, more time with family, less time planning, and more time listening, to birdsong, to the quiet, to the world beyond the stage. It's a hard truth for those who still remember the thrill of seeing him walk on stage, baton in hand, eyes alive with mischief and joy. That energy, once endless, now flickers like candlelight, warm, beautiful, but fragile. And so, as the pause lingers, fans ask themselves, is this just an intermission? Or is it the soft, respectful end of a concert that lasted far longer than anyone dared to dream? The unseen struggles. Behind the grandeur of glittering ballrooms and standing ovations, there was always another side to André Rieu, one the cameras rarely caught. For every magical performance, there were sleepless nights, travel fatigue, and the relentless pressure of perfection. The tuxedos, the lights, the roses thrown on stage, none of it came without sacrifice. Insiders now speak more openly of André's personal toll. "He was always pushing himself," shared a former crew member. "Even when he was exhausted, even when he was unwell, he refused to let the audience down." Rieu once confessed in an old interview, "I carry the joy of thousands, but sometimes it leaves no room for my own." In recent years, his health has reportedly faced setbacks. While no official diagnosis has ever been made public, there are whispers, minor heart concerns, moments of dizziness, and days when even holding the violin felt heavy. To the world, he still smiled. But to those nearest, there were signs that the stage was becoming more burden than blessing. The pressure to stay young in a world that worships vitality can be cruel. Even for a man who redefined how classical music is celebrated, time remains the one conductor no one can outrun. Fans, who once shouted his name from sold-out arenas, now post gentle wishes online. "Rest well, maestro. You've given us enough." And maybe that's the quiet truth behind all the speculation. Not scandal, not crisis, but a man, worn but fulfilled, finally choosing peace over performance. A legacy without end. What happens when the man steps away, but the music stays behind? That's the question André Rieu's followers are now beginning to face. If his baton falls still, Does the magic vanish with it? Or does it live on in the echoes of every note he ever played? For many, the answer is already clear. Across the world, tribute concerts have begun to take form, musicians recreating Rieu's iconic arrangements, orchestras embracing his philosophy of joy over rigidity. A movement once fueled by his energy is slowly becoming something larger than the man himself. His influence is no longer confined to one orchestra or one city. It's a shared heartbeat among thousands of artists and millions of listeners. Music teachers now point to Rieu as a role model, not just for how to perform, but for why to perform. He made it acceptable, noble even, for classical musicians to smile on stage, to laugh, to connect. In his world, the violin wasn't just an instrument, it was a bridge between strangers, a ribbon tying cultures and generations together. One young conductor recently said in an interview, "I never understood Strauss until I saw Rieu perform it. He didn't teach me the notes, he taught me the feeling."
My first violin teacher, she was an 18-year-old blonde girl.
Right.
And I fell in love with her.
Oh,
I was
I
5
see.
years old.
You would, 5 years.
So even as André Rieu begins to disappear from the spotlight, his light doesn't dim, it simply spreads. His presence may fade, but his vision is already planted in the hands and hearts of those who will carry it forward. The farewell. No one wants to hear. As the months pass and André Rieu's absence stretches longer, fans are beginning to ask the question they once feared to speak aloud. Is this it? Is he gone for good? There's no official statement, no press release, no televised farewell, just a growing, aching silence, like the final note of a waltz that lingers in the air before it disappears. Some say it's the perfect ending for a man who never needed drama to move the world. Others still hope for a comeback, a final tour, one more night beneath the stars in Maastricht. But those closest to him suggest something else, a quiet decision made with grace, far from the noise of the spotlight. A gentle retreat, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. André always said the music was never about him, recalled a friend. Maybe that's why he's choosing to go without applause. He wants the music to keep going, even without his name on the marquee. In many ways, that silence has become its own kind of goodbye. Not bitter, not loud, just soft and respectful, like the man himself when the cameras were off. For fans, it's an emotional reckoning. They don't just mourn the end of concerts. They mourn a presence that felt like comfort, a constant in changing times. And still, some cling to hope. Perhaps he will return. Perhaps he won't. But either way, one truth remains. The world is quieter now, and they can all feel it. The man, the myth, the maestro. In the world of entertainment, legends are often built on extravagance, but André Rieu built his on elegance and heart. He didn't need controversy or spectacle to make headlines. He simply let his violin speak, and through it, he spoke to millions. Now, as the world adjusts to the possibility of life without his live performances, a new image of Rieu begins to take shape, not just as a conductor or a showman, but as a symbol of grace in an industry that often forgets its soul. A man who brought tears to the eyes of strangers in languages he never spoke, who could make a widow smile with a single note, who turned an orchestra into a family and a concert into a celebration of life itself. Those who knew him best describe him not as a celebrity, but as a craftsman, meticulous, passionate, humble in ways only true greatness dares to be. He never acted like he was above us, shared one violinist. He made everyone feel like they mattered. That's why we gave him everything we had. Even now, fans light candles, play his DVDs on quiet evenings, and pass his music down to their children, not just as entertainment, but as inheritance. Because André Rieu wasn't just part of a musical era, he was the era. And perhaps that is the final transformation of a true maestro, not fading away, but becoming something eternal. Not a memory, but a myth. There is something haunting about an empty stage. The chairs remain in perfect formation. The music stands still, hold the sheet music. The lights dim slowly, casting long shadows where laughter and melodies once lived. For those who followed André Rieu's journey, this image now feels all too real, a beautiful metaphor for a chapter closing, yet painfully quiet. The Friedhof Square in Maastricht, once alive with his legendary summer concerts, now feels different. Locals say the city still holds its breath each July, hoping to see his tour buses roll in once more. But they know, the energy is different. The man who once turned this town into a fairy tale is no longer the one leading the magic. In rehearsal rooms and backstage corridors, his absence is palpable. Younger musicians say they still expect him to walk in, straighten a bow tie, adjust a music cue, offer a word of encouragement. But the doors remain shut. The laughter no longer echoes. One orchestra member softly admitted, "We play the same notes, but they don't feel the same anymore." And perhaps that's the hardest part of this quiet ending. There was no final curtain call, no farewell waltz under the stars. Just a silence that slowly replaced the sound, a space where he used to stand. But even in that emptiness, something sacred remains. The spirit he brought to every performance lingers, woven into the velvet curtains, the polished wood, the memories etched into every corner of the stage. And maybe that's the point. The music stops, but the presence never does. The lasting waltz. Waltzes by nature are circular, graceful loops that never truly end. Perhaps that's why André Rieu chose the waltz as the soul of his sound. Because to him, music wasn't a destination, it was a dance. One meant to be shared, repeated, remembered. And now, as the final verses of his public career begin to fade, it feels only right to ask, where does the waltz go when the dancer steps away? For fans, the answer is in their lives. Weddings where the blue Danube filled the air. Christmas mornings soundtracked by his festive albums. Quiet nights where his music gave comfort during grief. These weren't just performances, they were threads in the fabric of real life. And they still are. In many ways, Rieu's true masterpiece wasn't any single concert or album. It was the connection he created between people, between generations, between cultures, between strangers. His was a music of unity, simple, pure, joyful. And that spirit is now carried forward not just by his orchestra, but by the millions who listened, loved, and found meaning in his melodies. Someone once wrote online, "We didn't just watch André Rieu, we shared something with him." And that may be the truest tribute of all. Because even as the stage grows quiet, the dance continues, in living rooms, in memories, in the beating hearts of those who still hum his songs without even realizing it. A maestro may stop conducting, but a true waltz never really ends. André Rieu didn't follow the rules of the classical world, he rewrote them. While others aimed for technical mastery and strict tradition, Rieu aimed for emotion. He believed music should move people, not intimidate them. Whether you were a first-time listener or a lifelong fan of Mozart, his concerts welcomed you with open arms and left you feeling lighter. This sense of warmth became his trademark, one that few could imitate and none could replace. His performances weren't just events. They were memories in motion. People didn't just applaud. They laughed, cried, held hands, and danced in the aisles. He made the violin feel human, like a storyteller rather than a showpiece. That kind of connection isn't taught in conservatories. It's born from empathy, and Rieu had it in abundance. From Buenos Aires to Bangkok, André Rieu created a global phenomenon. But his reach went far beyond music charts and sold-out stadiums. He touched everyday lives in profound, personal ways. Fans often speak of how his music played at weddings, funerals, anniversaries, and quiet nights when the world felt too heavy. His soundtracks were there for life's highs and lows, becoming part of people's personal history. That impact isn't easy to measure. There are no statistics for how many tears fell during the second waltz, or how many fathers twirled their daughters under the soft strings of the blue Danube. Yet those are the moments that define a legacy, not numbers, but the feelings he gave so freely to the world. Every composition, no matter how grand, eventually reaches its final note. It lingers, soft, tender, unresolved, inviting silence to take its place. And perhaps that's exactly how André Rieu would want it, not with fanfare or farewell speeches, but with a gentle fade, as if the music itself were bowing out, not the man. There has still been no official goodbye, no press conference, no final concert date etched in gold. And yet, those closest to him have quietly accepted what many now believe to be true. The maestro has stepped away, not in defeat, not even in sadness, but in peace. A peace earned after decades of giving joy to others while often sacrificing his own rest. André Rieu didn't just build a career, he built a sanctuary, a place where people from all walks of life could meet under the open sky and remember what beauty feels like. That sanctuary still stands, even if he is no longer at its center. Now, the world turns the page slowly, carefully, almost reverently. Fans continue to play his music, not as background, but as legacy, not to mourn, but to honor. Because even as the final note falls, its echo remains, floating through time, through generations, through hearts that beat a little softer, a little fuller, because of him. And so, the stage may be empty, the baton resting still, but somewhere in the silence, his final note is still playing. At last, the symphony reaches its close, not with thunderous applause, but with a quiet that feels sacred. André Rieu may never stand before a cheering crowd again. There may be no final bow, no confetti falling from the rafters. But in that silence, something beautiful has happened. The man has become the music. He no longer needs the spotlight to be seen, nor the stage to be heard. His legacy has slipped beyond performance, beyond album sales and concert tours, and into something immortal. A child in Brazil learns the violin because her grandmother played André's DVDs every Sunday. An elderly couple in Vienna waltzes slowly in their kitchen, holding on to both each other and his melodies. A young conductor in Johannesburg mimics his warmth, not just his technique. This is what happens when a life is lived in service to joy. For the world, it may be the end of the live performances, the interviews, the orchestra-led spectacles. But for those who truly listened, for those who felt what he gave, André Rieu has never been more alive. He exists now in every rising string, every sweeping crescendo, every tear shed when a song reminds us of something we lost or someone we loved. In the end, the silence isn't empty. It's full of memory, full of grace, full of the waltzes he gave us, and the ones we'll keep dancing long after he's gone. Because when a maestro like André Rieu finally steps away, the world doesn't stop hearing him. It simply starts listening in a different way. Maybe the stage lights have dimmed, and the familiar sound of André Rieu's violin has grown distant, but the echo of his music still lingers, quietly filling spaces where silence once lived. His legacy was never meant to be locked within concert halls or confined to ticket stubs. It lives on in the joy of strangers who danced without shame, in the tears of those healed by a single melody, and in the thousands of lives gently touched by his passion. André Rieu didn't just conduct music. He conducted moments that became memories, and memories that became part of people's lives. If this truly is the final bow, then it's not an ending in sorrow, but a farewell wrapped in beauty, dignity, and grace. And as long as someone plays a waltz, hums his arrangements, or presses play on a well-worn DVD, André will still be there. Because some legacies don't need applause to stay alive. They just need to be remembered. And Rieu's? It will waltz through time, long after the final note fades.